We've all been there in the middle of a job. Everything's going smoothly until boom, you're missing a part. United Refrigeration Incorporated is your one-stop shop for all your refrigeration needs. Use your computer or smartphone to go to uri.com/ARP at any time of the day to check stock on your favorite brand, such as Copeland, Sporlan, refrigerant conversions, refrigerant banking, Carlisle compressors, Danfoss, Emerson, CPC boards, sensors, Carroll, Husband, KE2 Therm. United Refrigeration Incorporated has home to these brands and many more. All approved accounts are able to see live inventory and pricing. Product not in stock at your local branch, no problem. Use the nearby stock feature to find a local branch that does have what you need. Are you looking for a branch address, phone number, after hours number? That's all available as well. Just click on the branch locator and search your local branch. Have a model number and looking for a replacement part? URI.com/ARP has a vast list of quick pick replacement parts. Just search the model number of the equipment you're working on and click the replacement tab parts. If you don't have an account, click the register button and we'll have you on the line in no time. United Refrigeration Incorporated has over 400 locations in North America. Every branch is fully stocked for immediate pickup. At United Refrigeration Incorporated, our branch employees have in-depth technical knowledge so we can help you get what you need when you need it. United Refrigeration Incorporated has all your solutions down cold. Visit your local store or uri.com/ARP today. Thanks, guys.
I'd like to take a minute to talk about one of our sponsors, Parker Sporlan and thermostatic expansion valves. How can you guys always have the right thermostatic expansion valve for the right application without having to carry hundreds of valves in your truck? Well, that's simple. Using Sporlan's interchangeable cartridge-style valves. The Q valve for conventional and the BQ valve for balance port. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. It serves thousands of unique applications. So 1, you just select the thermostatic element for your application. 2, you select the body style you need. 3, you select the right size cartridge for the application. These easy to select and assemble valves mean you always have the right valve for the job on your truck. For more information on the Q and BQ valves, visit Sporlan.com. Thanks, guys. Enjoy the episode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Advanced Refrigeration Podcast. You're here with your host, Brett Wetzel and Kevin Compass. I'm stuck.
I told you. That's why I got out of there when I did. I booked it out of there as soon as I could. Even though I was done working, I could have stayed another day and worked more, but maybe stop by again. But I was not chancing. I got the last seat, and then the flight after me, they canceled it. So
my
got
flight,
like 17 inches of snow. So
yeah, Texas has like a half-inch ice, maybe 1 inch, and every single flight. I actually slept at the airport last night in a little hostel type thing. And then after that, I was, because the flight was at 4:30 this morning. So it didn't make any sense to leave for a hotel and then come back. And that flight got canceled. And the next one, then all of them. So I'm stuck here until Friday.
it sounds miserable. I guess there's worse places to be stuck. So today I want to go over, we're going to do a quick podcast, guys. Been a long week, a lot going on. Brett looks like he's been up for 2 days straight.
Yeah, I have.
So we're going to go over leak checking, guys. So basically checking. So, it seems to be a thing. It's missed a lot. So first things first, I always make sure my leak detector's working, warm it up outside, where it's not in an environment where it's going to be by any refrigerant. Second thing, have a good leak detector. H10 PM, great leak detector. Stratus, better leak detector. Probably the best leak detector on the market right now.
How about the big old back rack? What's that, the PZ?
I don't like that thing, man.
Really?
It's good, but like a Stratus is just as good to me. That thing went out of when the Stratus came around to me. Like it's bulky, it's hard to get in places.
It's a pain in the ass. Guys plug the filters up all the time. I mean, it's expensive. A guy has it in his van, he breaks it. I mean, it has its place, but I mean, with the Stratus coming out, I don't see that thing anymore. Like, I haven't used that thing in like probably 2 years. And we have like anything between the branch, we have like 3 of them. I don't see it used a lot anymore.
Yeah, I just have 2 H10s. I don't think I've ever actually used the Stratus. I've never owned one.
Yeah, see, I have a Stratus and I have 2 H10s.
Yeah.
But the Stratus, the thing about the Stratus is nice is it has the dual use, because I could use it for CO2. Just swap another cartridge in there and I could use it for CO2.
Yeah, I think the cartridge is like $90 for that, I believe.
I have no idea. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
the company buys that, but so I mean, yeah, I mean you could use the dual usage, and the battery lasts way longer than the H10, which is my only complaint about the H10 is the battery is, a 60-year-old lead acid battery still. I mean,
Yeah, you have to change them every year on the H10. I mean, I've had the same 2 leak detectors. One I think is like 13 years old. The other one's 15 years old.
I used to keep like my truck. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, I change the battery every year. I change the sensor every year because then it doesn't, cause any weird draw on it.
Yeah,
and it works just fine. When you leak check, do you actually calibrate it outside like you're supposed to?
yes.
Yeah, you do have like heat reclaim in there that you could basically find a leak in the air, or no?
Yeah, basically, you could find a leak in the air. You could find, you could have a leak when you first walk in. I mean, you want to calibrate it outside where there's no leak.
So do you do the cases first?
So generally, I start the rack first. I always usually start at the rack. So I'll warm it up. I'll walk in. Obviously, if I'm walking in and it goes nuts, then I'm gonna, respond to that. But like, I generally walk in and I go straight up to the rack and I leak check the rack. Let's be honest, because the majority of the leaks are in the rack room. I mean, that's where the most vibration is. That's where the most piping is. All the valves, flare nuts, stuff like that. And I spend my time going thoroughly through the rack. Obviously, if I don't find anything in the rack room and I don't see any oil anywhere, then I'll move on. I'll check the condenser. It's the overload thing.
Wait. I got to stop you here because you don't shut anything down?
Not in the first initial sweep, no.
Oh, okay.
Like I do, this is how I do it. Like I sweep the rack room. If I don't find anything in the rack room, I move on to the condenser because it overlooked a lot. Like I pop my head up there, make sure there's no fans through it. Make sure I got nothing leaking, run by the condenser real quick, check the PRV, vent upstairs to put the leak detector in there, make sure nothing's come through the PRVs. And then I'll go down to the cases and start checking cases and walk-ins. And I'll go through there and I'll go thoroughly and slowly. I'll go through glass doors one by one, leaving it in there. Walking slow, same with the cases. I'll pop my head up on top. If I got piping on top of cases, I'll, put my leak detector up top, my hand up there. The Stratus has a wand extension on it, which is nice. You could get like another 18 inches out of it, I think. And I'll, sweep on top of there if there's valve stations up there. Then if I don't find anything, then I will start shutting things off. That's my go-to. I will go to the machine room, shut the compressors off, let the suction pressure build up, let everything warm up. I don't know how many times I've seen guys miss small suction leaks that get big when things go into hot gas in the mechanical room and stuff by not doing that. I'll let everything warm up, let the pressures come up, and then I'll recheck the mechanical room. I mean, I've found so many leaks by doing this, by shutting anything off, shutting off of the airflow in the room, the exhaust fan, head cooling fans. It just makes it a lot easier to track it down. Now, this is the nice thing about the Stratus. If you have a big leak in the mechanical room and you can't find it with the H10 because the head cooling fans are throwing everything, throwing it in that PPM mode is great because you could basically, that thing's like a bloodhound. It'll take you right to where that leak is by watching the PPM increase.
Yeah, and that's why I shut everything down. Just like you said, it raises up the suction pressure, head pressure stays pretty steady, and then basically shut off all the PRVs and start with the top, go from the top and work your way down with the leak detector. Just because refrigerant is heavier than air, So it wants to travel onto the ground. So by starting at the top, you're more likely to pinpoint your leak where, when you're going through the whole rack.
Yeah, and then obviously if I don't find the mechanical room, I'm going back down to the cases and I'm checking the cases. I don't know how many times I've found leaks, smaller leaks in the cases that turn big when they go into defrost, say like it's a medium temp case, and when the EPR shuts, it starts blowing out of a suction line, or like vice versa, low temp does the same thing. It starts blowing out of a suction line somewhere, but it only may have like 10 pounds on it and it may be covered in ice. And when it's not in defrost, and it may not be as bad of a leak. And then same thing if I find a row of glass doors leaking, okay, and I can't find the leak and it's going off in the glass doors, I'll open all the doors up, okay, I'll let it air out for like 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, and I'll take the leak detector back in there. Usually you could pinpoint it on the actual case it's at. It'll start, chirping little bits here and there, or start going off. But again, this is where the Stratus is king. You walk up to it, generally without even venting it out, I can tell what case it is by throwing it in PPM mode and walking the case. And as it starts going up, boom, it's in this case. I pull the bottom pan and usually I can find it.
You shut off the fans?
Sometimes. It depends. Hardly ever, no.
Today's episode is sponsored by the new Reefer Shield differential pressure monitor from Westermeyer Industries. When the filter element of your coalescing oil separator is contaminated, it can hurt your system's performance and efficiency. But how do you know when it's time to replace that filter? Wait too long to replace and you could end up with a nasty filter blowout. But replacing too often can be a waste of time and money. The answer is installing a differential pressure monitor. The new Reefer Shield RDP-01 differential pressure monitor is available now from Westermeyer Industries. To find out more information, email sales@westermeyerind.com. That's sales@westermeyerind.com.
And the cases, I usually don't have to. I mean, by the time you find out which case it is, the lineup or wherever it's at, I mean, you generally know in the area of where it is.
I guess that's maybe why I shut them down, because I use the H10, so I don't have a PPM gauge to keep reading. You know what I mean? So I shut down all the fans. Find if it's a three set lineup where you have three separate cases on that one that is separated from the next case, I'll just open all the doors and shut off all the fans and go in there and then find it that way.
Usually with the H10, I'll open all the doors up and I'll turn it down, and usually can find it that way. I don't usually turn the fans off unless I absolutely have to. But again, that's where like the H10, I mean, I used to hate D-Techs, hate them. The Select was a terrible leak detector for me. Like I had like 5 or 6 of them, and they would miss leaks constantly. With the H10, the H10 would fine, but like the D-Tech or the Stratus, that thing is, I have 0 issues with it. I've had like 3 of them now, and all 3 of them have like outperformed the H10 in every aspect.
It's funny you say that, because like I've talked to some guys where they live and die by the D-Tech Select. They're like, it's the best leak detector. I'm like, I really like my H10, and
like the TIFF Blue Banana. That's all I used to use. Like that thing was great, but like there's guys out there that absolutely hated it. That Blue Banana, like the TIFF stopped making it. Like the ZX leak detector, I used to use that thing all the time. It was great. I would find tons of leaks with it, but the Stratus definitely is out there. Now, same thing. If you guys aren't finding the leaks in the store, like if you're having trouble finding a leak in a store, shut the HVAC off. Get all the air movement to stop in that area. Shut the HVAC off. Start leak checking on top of boxes, because usually when you shut the HVAC off, you may find a leak that's being hidden that's up in the overhead. You're not finding anything leaks, then it's time to start checking the underground and overhead. Generally, what I do is take an Armo knife up with me and a scissor lift, slice a couple spots in the Armaflex, stick the a quick slice. I'll stick the leak detector just above it. Don't stick it in it, because the H10 and the Stratus will go off if they're heated diode leak detectors. So when you block the airflow, it heats the diode up, and then it makes it look like it's a leak. So try just don't shove it in there. And the same with the H10, don't suck up moisture in that thing. It's very sensitive to that. So like you want to keep it just above the Armaflex where you slid it. And if you start picking it up, I mean, move on, just start going further down the line and slit it again. If it gets, let it vent out a little bit. And if it gets higher as you go, you're getting closer to the leak. If it gets lower than you go the opposite way in the pipe run. And that I would isolate that pipe run and, pressurize it up, shut the suction off, shut the liquid off, let it pressurize up so you could find that leak. Just keep moving forward or backwards, following the PPM or the leak detector, how much more it's going off. That's how I generally find the overhead leaks. I mean, and then start ripping the Armo. But usually by the time you get close, if it's covered in Armaflex, it's going to be covered in oil soon.
Have you ever had one that you couldn't pinpoint in the underground? And we at one point we had so much ice on some of the stuff because the pipes were under there for a good 20 years, and they'll get ice around it, which sometimes will encapsulate that the first year in there. What?
It'll crush the lines.
Yeah. So like we've tried to basically shut down this one and raise the suction pressure as high as the liquid pressure, and if the PPM then starts rising with that, that's the only way that I know to figure it out. Because if you can't pinpoint it like that, you end up having to basically cut and cap every single system, separate from the rack, so you can basically pressurize it and see if it does go down.
Generally, when we have that issue, like if I see that shit and it's leaking like that and the pit is full of ice, I'm recommending that they repipe everything overhead. And generally, most of these customers have been doing it just for the fact that if there's one crush line down there, there's probably multiple crush lines down there. So I hate underground. Like I think it's the worst idea you could ever do.
Even if it's not, like if it's ran in jacketing, like in PVC jacketing,
it's still gonna get water down there. If you do it perfect, Armaflex is still going to crack down there. It's still going to get water down there. I mean, it's just all around not a good idea. Like, I'm not a fan of underground. You pipe it overhead, it looks just as good. I think it looks it cleaner overhead anyway. And it's easier to service later on. But yeah, so like leak checking that stuff, checking ball valve caps, check out your compressors when they're running. I mean, just leak check over everything. Receiver, checking over the receiver pressurization valves, checking over the receiver gauges are a big leak spot. Heat reclaim. I generally get inside the unit, air off with the blower off, and just check over the coil. Go ahead, Brett. What did you have to say?
I was going to ask if you're in a windy area, because I mean, a lot of your stuff is on the roofs of high rises and stuff. So like when checking for a condenser, what do you end up doing? I mean, if it's that bad, you might see a little oil, but not, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Generally, most of the time, the condenser leaks are like, in my experience, like there's usually oil, like a lot of it. But like I'll generally like go by the tube sheets, and I'll just run my leak detector around the edge of the header, because that's usually where the leaks are, or the other end. I mean, I'll check that, and I'll just run it as close to it as I can, or on top of the fan bank when it's blowing out. Usually it'll blow it out, and the Stratus has been pretty good at picking them up.
So we had a Proto Air up that where the condenser coil let go, and the guy was all over the rack, ripping everything off, spraying everything down, because you'd get a hit, not get a hit, back and forth. And finally I told him just shut everything down, go up there with a tarp with some magnets, just to stop the flow of air just going through it, because that's what was throwing him off. It was 3 feet over here and then 2 feet over here, and he wasn't able to pinpoint until he.
At that point, all you could do is tarp it and kind of like trap it in there and try not to hot box yourself with refrigerant. But yeah, I mean that's generally what I do. Like, I mean, just take leak looking slow. I mean, just go slow. Keep your eyes open. I generally throw some good music on, and I just kind of go slow and just watch the leak detector. And once I get to that point where I start, finding it, I'll take my ear protection off, and I'll start, looking for the leak or hearing it. But like, generally just go slow, get on top of boxes. I don't know how many times guys miss leaks when they're on top of boxes that they don't get on top of boxes and check. I mean, look at line solenoids up there. Like there's all kinds of stuff up there. Like guys, get on top of boxes, get on top of boxes.
Usually up there, I mean, that's usually where a lot of the stuff after a retrofit gets forgotten.
Yes.
Right, is because no one's thinking that every single box has a solenoid on top. For and think about it, it makes sense. But like usually, if you have a leak in the box, it's going to shut down that liquid line solenoid to empty out, so it doesn't keep pumping refrigerant there.
Yeah, so like guys, get on top of the boxes, get on the piping penetrations where they come into the building. I mean, overhead leaks get missed a lot. Like if you can't find a leak in a store and you add gas and it's a significant amount, I mean, you can't find the cases or racks. I'm recommending an overhead leak check, so that I can come in there at night or early in the morning and check the overhead and with the scissor lift and the lifts.
What water reclaim? One of the ways that I leak check that, because unfortunately a lot, I mean, unless the Stratus is different, a lot of time the leak detector will actually it'll go off at the foam, because the foam is made with I don't know if it's exactly CFCs, but it's something in there that basically makes that leak detector go buck. Usually what I'll do is depressurize it, get it all the way down to suction pressure as low as you can, stick the leak detector in there just to get a baseline of what I'm getting from the from that material in there, and get it so it's not chirping while it's actually sitting there. And then I'll repressurize it with discharge gas, and sometimes I can actually see it come up that way. So some other times you can also have a leak inside on the water side, which I've seen where
on the Streamlines and Muellers, they're not inside the jacketing. They're actually wrapped around the outside.
Are they? Okay.
So
I've had some where like you hit the relief and just enough that air came out, and then basically my leak detector went off.
Yeah, so like the Mueller and the actual Thermistor tanks, those are actually wrapped around the outside and foamed. So they actually wrap the coil around the outside of the tank and they foam it. I don't know about everybody else, but I usually only see Mueller, Streamline, and Thermistor tanks. Those are all wrapped. But like what I do is with this Stratus, I get a baseline like you. I get close to it, and then I usually leave it like just above the top piping penetration and the bottom one, and I'll see what it's beeping at. If it's going like nuts, usually it's about 20 ppm. If it's going nuts like 50, 70, 80 ppm, the tank's leaking. And then I'll generally just isolate the tank, blow it down, and cut it loose and pressurize it. But that's how I generally handle the heat reclaim stuff. Same thing with like if you have any glycol coils. We had this instance where we had a couple glycol coils, heat exchangers crack, and guys miss it, and it's randomly there's things going off in a rack room for the leak detector because it's going out of the air separator. So with that, I isolate the heat exchangers, I blow them down the glycol side, and I put the Stratus by the drain. If it starts going off like nuts and ppm starts spiking, I know I got refrigerant there because glycol will not set off the leak detector. So I generally will isolate it, I'll blow it down, and I'll see if the glycol side starts building pressure. If it starts building pressure, I know there's refrigerant in there. So that's another way to leak check the glycol side of it. CO2, that turns into an absolute clusterfuck because usually the CO2 ends up going backwards into the DX refrigerant.
That would be wretched.
Yeah, it's bad. I've had it happen on 2 different racks. Well, guys, I mean, that was a quick leak check one. We'll do a different one on CO2. That one in a sense could take a while. So we just want to do a quick one on leak checking this week. Thanks for listening, guys, and see you in the next one.
Later, guys.